I would like to call to order the November 9th, 2023 Planning Commission agenda. We're a little bit behind schedule. We had some IT problems, but first order would be to roll call.
All right, Dargis Johnson.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Spire.
Here.
Aletsky. She is on Teams. Bonnie, can you? She's not muted. She's.
Did she turn the volume down?
Oh. Perfect. Okay, Bonnie Aletsky, can you hear us? Or I think you always could hear us, but now maybe we can hear you.
I'm here.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And then Culhane, Brink, Kays, and Dolly are absent. We have a quorum. There's 5 members, so the majority is that there would be 3 yeses and 2 nos. 3 yeses would be a positive recommendation to council.
So next item is the invitation for public comment. Typically, we will, if someone would like to make a comment of something not on the agenda, that you can sign up and we will address that at the end of the meeting. Next item is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Next item is the approval of the minutes. No, we should, well, I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second. All in favor for the approval of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda approved. Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion. Approve the minutes.
I have a correction. I believe the approval of the, where it says approval of the minutes from September 7th, there's no tally of who approved and who didn't. Plus, I believe Kays abstained on the approval of those minutes.
Okay.
All right, staff will follow up with that. With that being, we'll approve the minutes as stated
Next meeting.
at the next meeting.
Next meeting,
All right,
yeah.
sorry. Item 6 then is the regular agenda. Item 6A is the commission consideration of resolution 2023-33, a zoning map amendment for lots 2 through 5 in the Mansell Second Edition from its current designation of R1 Single Family Residential District to a PUD Planned Unit Development. Brandy, if you want to.
Yes, thank you, Hanson. So this item is actually postponed per the developer and applicant, and so we will meet on this item on December 7th.
Will that be re-advertised or reposted?
Yep.
Brandy?
New public notice with the updated date, and then same with the adjacent landowner letters.
And then for reference, this will be our only planning committee, because I believe Thanksgiving then.
Yep,
yeah.
there is no meeting on that week of Thanksgiving.
Correct. Number 6B is commission consideration resolution number 2023-34, amendment resolution number Y2394, annexation approved November 3 of 1980 to allow lots in block 1 through 5 of North Lake Drive addition to have access onto North Lake Drive. Brandy.
Thank you, Jason. So as you can tell by that resolution number, and with this approval coming in November of 1980 for the annexation and zoning of North Lake Drive addition, and this effectively impacts Pheasant Lane and access onto North Lake Drive. So let me get down so I can kind of walk you guys through this, as it has a lot of history dating back to 1980. So when it was annexed and zoned, in the resolution, there was the restriction for, or restriction to blocks 1 through 5 of North Lake Drive addition, that they would not have direct access onto North Lake Drive, and that access shall be only by the designated street on the plat, which at that time, or currently still, was platted as Pheasant Lane. And Pheasant Lane exists, it's unimproved for the most part. Some utilities have been extended to this, up to this portion here, to the northeast. And it does provide sole access to the lots within block. Let's see here. Well, block 5. But these are not the lots that we're contemplating because they do not, these lots here, 8 through 12 do not have access to North Lake Drive. So it is just the lots that abut North Lake Drive and then also have secondary access, or at this time, primary access to Pheasant Lane. However, it is unimproved. Typically, streets are improved by the developer per a development agreement to city standards, so that when the lots are sold, that the property owner is then paying for the cost of the infrastructure that abuts their property, and then also that provides them access to be able to have building permits issued for their lots. So that's the predicament that we're in with these lots. Being that Pheasant Lane was never improved, the lots have been sold, and the people that own them today cannot utilize them because they need that frontage. And then the fact that access is restricted onto North Lake Drive, then they can't utilize the improved street. So what this action, or what this item that we're looking at today, is proposing that we lift the access restriction to North Lake Drive. I believe, well, North Lake Drive is a collector street, but the speed limit has been reduced to 35 miles an hour. There's obviously the recreational trail and the tree belt that runs along the north side of North Lake Drive. However, we do have Clearview Triangle standards in our engineering design standards. So if people were to cut in driveways to access North Lake Drive, they would need to make sure that there was sufficient clearance so that there was not safety concerns with the recreational trail. And then also, this was brought to council on a work session previously. What was the date on that? On October 10th, where they asked that if a resolution be brought forward, that we also create a requirement that the driveways have turnaround areas so that people are able to back onto that and then be able to enter North Lake Drive facing forward, so they're not backing out onto North Lake Drive. And as typical drive, that would be a higher standard as typical driveways, you back out onto the street. But just with the, I guess, sensitivities in the area, that would be a higher standard that is written into the resolution. One other thing, so these are some images here of how Pheasant Lane exists today. And then here is the amended resolution where you can see that it is specified about the turnarounds to avoid backing out onto driveway, or backing out of driveways onto North Lake Drive. And then the other requirement or stipulation in here is the sanitary sewer issue within North Lake Drive. So we have in here sanitary sewer main is not extended within the right-of-way of North Lake Drive adjacent to lots 9 through 10, block 2, and lots 1 through 10, block 3 of North Lake Drive addition, which would need to be installed prior to building permit issuance for those specific lots. And staff is aware of that, and the wastewater division and engineering division has looked into it, where the sanitary sewer really could be, it can physically be done, as far as, you have your limitations with gravity and whatnot, but it would be able to, these two manholes would be able to be connected within the right-of-way so that it would provide for sanitary sewer to these lots. Water is already existing within North Lake Drive, and obviously it's an improved street. So with that, I will open it up, or I'll stand by for questions, but then also I just wanted to make known that with this being a resolution amendment, there's no public hearing requirement, so there was not one posted. However, we did send letters to the property owners that would be affected by this, as it is directly impacting them. And so it's up to the board or the chair if you would like to take public testimony, but there is no formal public hearing that needs to be opened.
Thank you, Brandy. Any questions for staff from the board?
So to put the sewer in, that becomes a city expense, and that street would have to get completely shut down in order to open that, or?
So it would actually be installed and then assessed back to those properties that abut it. And as far as the construction, most likely, but they also they talked about being able to put it within the shoulder so that it might not have to impact the street itself, but that would have to be decided at the time the construction plans were finalized and the traffic control plan was determined.
These lots 1 through 5 for consideration right now, are they zoned R1?
Yes, for the most part, there are some lots that are zoned RG along Pheasant Lane, which is the residential garage district, which is kind of the reason that district was created.
Can you
However,
show
a lot of these lots couldn't even get a building permit to be able to utilize that zoning. So these are the lots that are zoned RG, otherwise they are R1 single-family residential.
And the other lots, we're only considering ones coming forward today for the access. All different property owners, or is there a block of properties, is it under single ownership for these lots, or no?
You know, you can kind of see here where there are some lots that are owned there. So when you see these larger parcels,
Yeah.
then those are contiguous lots under the same
They've been
property
combined,
owner.
Yeah. So the other ones have not come forward yet with a request for access to North Lake then, just the ones we're considering today?
So
The ones
all
to
of
the
north,
northeast and the southwest.
so northeast would not be able to, because they don't abut North Lake Drive, but this action would allow for any of these lots that abut North Lake Drive and Pheasant Lane.
So the whole strip there, it's just not what's in blue on the,
Yeah.
in the attachment here.
Yeah, so
So-
that is only showing the sanitary sewer.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so that's a good point, actually, as far as making, I could highlight those for when it goes forward to council, all of the lots that it will be affected.
Tire strip, okay.
Yep. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's no worries, that's why we're here. How many access points is that's being asked for then, as it exists today with the combination of plats and all?
We might have to do a count.
I'm getting 23, if you leave the lots the size they are. I might not be able to count, right?
26.
Yeah, just for future consideration, I mean, there's gonna be a couple dozen or thereabouts, I guess. Yeah,
I see about
I think 41.
Yeah, 41 or 42.
41.
If you break them apart, you're saying, yeah. Or,
Yeah, and then so what Rhonda's saying as far as the parcels then, yep. You want to jot those numbers down, Jana? Those would be good things to include for council.
23 parcels and 42.
And then, the city right away on the lake side facing edge of those properties, that there, remind me, is there the bike path on that north side of Lake Shore Drive, or is it, there is?
Yep, on the
City-
north side.
City improvement and so that was done in the right of way for the city along all those lots, right? So
Yep.
So any driveway access would cut across that bike path?
Yep. And then that's where that Clearview triangle for that tree belt that runs there too, that would be required to provide sufficient clearance so that people could see when they were coming out of their driveway if there were people using the recreational trail. And I just want to clarify, the only reason I asked you to jot those down is because I forgot a pen, Jana. Otherwise, I was looking around for one.
Do you know what the offset is, the setback is, excuse me, from the bike path is, or is it just from the edge of the plat? You know, is it the standard 9 foot, I think?
10 foot.
10 foot from the edge of the, so the bike path is already a foot or two in, right?
So the bike path is all within the public right of way.
Public right away, yeah. So,
So Brandy, with the resolution, does it address if people want to access North Lake Drive, is there going to be a standard of asphalt or concrete, or what material will they need to use to
For their driveway?
correct? And in the, I guess to me, the impact of it puts on the recreation trail and both North Lake Drive.
So they would obviously have to cut the recreational trail to, well, most likely. And then if they did, they would replace it. And then make sure that it was replaced so it was, I guess, in line with the current trail. So you're not getting a bunch of bumps in the trail, for lack of better terms. And then, but they could do concrete or asphalt, whatever pavement they would choose.
But no, it'd have to be, again, I'm going to say hard surface, no gravel, no
Nope,
crushed rock, that type of thing.
no.
And then would there be, I'm assuming there wouldn't have to be a curb or anything like that at that juncture either.
No, that would end up being a larger assessment project. And in North Lake Drive especially, it has the rural section with the ditches for the stormwater conveyance. So that would be quite an endeavor. And it would have to be the entire stretch for it to function, to have the curb and gutter.
I'm thinking back, Brandy, to when the bike trail was put on that side of North Lake Drive, and that safety was a huge reason that it was installed there. And 40 potential driveway accesses in a relatively small area, I see just a huge safety red flag. And as far as I look at the board and what we're dealing with, safety is the number one thing that I always look at that first. And a turnaround on a property is great, a circle so that they don't have to back out. But when it's the 4th of July or a family reunion and your driveway is full of cars, that's highly likely that there will be some backing out. And I don't know that you can make an ordinance that says it's illegal to back out. I don't think that would be very practical or enforceable. So I have a real issue with the safety part of this. And I just want to add, the 35 miles an hour, it's not being enforced, so I don't think that really that actually adds to the safety thing, because I've never seen a patrol car out there. I'd be interested to know how many speeding tickets the police department has issued out there since the 35 miles an hour was implemented. I don't look upon that 35 miles an hour as a guarantee of safety at all.
Brandy, now I'm going to go down the rabbit hole nobody wants to go. So when we zoned those garage lots, the RGs, I remember we talked about Pheasant Lane because that was their access. So, not sure how this fell through the cracks. If we want to go back to, was it John Scott who did the developing?
Harvey Bew.
View, okay. So, and subsequently, lots have been sold. So buyer beware when you're buying a lot, that you should have access to your lot. So I guess there's my first problem. You know, whether it was, the ball was dropped by the developer or by the city, because the city doesn't monitor, you know, when a land sells. But when you're buying property, you should know how you're going to gain access to your property. So I guess, I don't know if an HOA needs to be formed now, or if you know, with the owners. I did go back to see, and did some real quick checks on a handful of the properties to see where ownership is, and there's a few that, you know, have gone way back to 1998, that's as far as, you know, without going to the courthouse to dig out the file, that people have owned these, so I'm assuming they probably owned them since 1980. So, in my opinion, I mean, like I said, either Mr. Bew, if he's, you know, I know a couple of the resident, or a couple of the current owners, or previous owners, I should say, are deceased, so I think that if, with these lot owners, they need to put their street in, and it's just going to have to be, you know, whether it's, like you said, assessed back to them in order to get access to their property, or however that needs to be handled, but, you know, like I said, we're going to wreck the bike trail that, you know, we've put in, and the original document said that they cannot have access to North Lake Drive, and I don't know why we would now, 30 years later, you know, create the sin. I mean, the sin was, we stopped it way back then, and now we're going to bless it and say, yeah, we can have access, all 40 accesses onto that Lake Drive. So that is, I guess that's how I see it, that the existing owners need to, you know, form an HOA and put the street in and put the infrastructure in for sewer and water and carry on. Thanks.
Well, I guess, yeah, follow on to that. Great point, Rhonda. The Pheasant Lane, whose responsibility would it be to have put in Pheasant Lane as it was originally intended? Where would that responsibility lie?
So it would be an assessment project, same with how the sanitary sewer would be installed. And it would be, you know, the north half would go to the north property upon annexation. And then the south half would go to the annexed properties. And otherwise, that's so, assessment projects are ran by the city, and then it'd be fronted. So, and the city would not collect that north half back until that property to the north would be annexed.
So I guess I didn't even answer one of my own questions. How did we change the zoning on those lots? Because I was on the board without access from Pheasant Lane.
So this one up here this is the only lot that had permitted access prior to this being annexed and zoned, and that access being restricted. This property here, sorry. Let me make sure. So they have access of, and this was just a different interpretation of improved access versus access. And so this building permit was able to be issued. This property here is the only one that has permitted access to North Lake Drive. And obviously there are existing accesses, and those were not permitted. They were just presumably cut in, you know, between now and then. But they're not allowed, but they do exist.
When nobody was looking.
Yeah, probably weekend projects.
Okay, but what about yeah, what about the garage ones we did down further?
That I can't speak to, honestly. And again, it might have just been the desire to do the RG zoning and then figure out the access at a later date. But
Brand, so When you
I
zoom
think
in,
that
are
was
there
before my
existing
time.
structures on some of those properties?
What's that?
Are there existing structures on some of those properties?
No, there are on some, but for the most part, it is the lake equipment storage, like lifts.
And so, again, same thing. If there are structures on there, they were never permitted.
Some of these are. So like Antelope, this is the right of way. So any structure that is built out there did have a permit. And so these lots were fortunate that they were able to utilize a right of way as their driveways, and it's also gravel. But then the lots that are in the interior that they don't abut the right of way points, then they have to extend, all the way.
Back to Pheasant.
Yeah. And also that gets difficult to administer too if if this property owner wants to build and then they have to put in Pheasant Lane, how do they recover their cost from the adjacent landowner? The other thing about subdivision is it is atypical that you would only see access from one side of a street or public right of way because of maintenance and property tax, where you typically see a right of way or street developed with lots on each side. And I can't speak to why this was done in 1980, assuming that it was the county highway at that point, and or state highway.
I can tell you all about it. I've been out there for 50 years.
We'll see. Well, we can see if the board wants to allow public input, but I do think that could be interesting.
So, Brandy, I totally agree with you, Rhonda, on the buyer beware philosophy. And the item that was postponed, the PUD item from our agenda, is such a perfect example of how this should be as far as access and the private road, because for that PUD item, if you look at the examples, there are two accesses, platted accesses, one on each end that lead into the property. And then there's a private road that goes across that the buildings access. So the bike path is going to be over there also. And that protects the bike path from so many unnecessary accesses. I don't understand why on South Lake Drive, we're proposing two accesses with a road that connects them, that's private on the property, and over here, we want to have 40-some accesses because something that should have been developed wasn't developed. I'm mystified by that.
If I could expand on that too a little, Diana. Now with South Lake Drive, the reason with that specific Campsco development is because that lot is so large that gives them the ability to build on each side of the street instead of having access points onto South Lake Drive. Now these are typical residential lots, so they wouldn't have that ability to develop on both sides of that private street. And then also with South Lake Drive, we do have the recreational trail that does have the driveway accesses that cut through. I did a calculation, so this stretch of North Lake Drive is around 4,000 linear feet. So if you had the 42 accesses, there would be 95 feet between each driveway, in theory, obviously, wherever people place it. And then also in our engineering design standards, we do, it's the minimum spacing between driveways is 20 feet. So, and then on collector streets, actually, let me look that up. I may be misspoken there.
If I could interrupt you a minute, Brandy, while you're looking that up, I guess I'm going to intervene there again. There's no reason that the other half of that street couldn't be developed. It's no different than 14th Avenue up here, where we have, half a street in. We only have, a handful of homes getting off of that one. So, you know, again, I just think that I'm with Diana, that needs to be accessed from the side it was originally set. And there's no saying that the other north half of that couldn't eventually become lake, or, you know, residential lots, and then the whole street could go in. There's, you know,
Well,
future
it's-
development.
It's
there.
showing in here as future development on our,
True.
it's already shown.
No, I think
Pheasant
that's the lake.
Lane.
No, that's,
No, this is Pheasant Lane, right here. This is Pheasant Lane, and this is what we're talking about, and it says future development, and there it is, just parallel to it.
Okay, 50 feet between driveways. Sorry about that. After
Five-
I said it, I was like,
5-0?
yes.
Okay, thank you, Brandy.
I do see we have some members in the audience. We're really not required to do a public hearing. I would entertain if people would like to come forward. We'll kind of limit, kind of give you a couple minutes each, and then, you know, kind of make your case, and we'll try to keep any redundant or repetitive comments. But if anyone would like to make a public statement, we will open a public hearing.
Not even open a public hearing, just allow
Just
public
allow
comment.
testament or input.
Perfect.
Yep. We'll have you come forward to the mic and state your name for the record, please. Hang on, just a second. Brandy, is that mic on?
Gary Liebel. And, well, I've lived out there over 50 years, and Harvey Bew, I think, was developing it. That's what happened. And then I think he went broke at the time. And then basically he sold lots. And this right here, this in here, that was, yeah. How should I put that? All this on North Lake Drive was a state road at the time. And when I was out there, I applied for one, and I got my garage in. And then you had to apply to the state to have an approach put in. So I applied for the state and had my approach put in. And then after that, it couldn't have been long after that. I don't know if the city decided that they didn't want all these approaches to come out. Matter of fact, that was the last one I think they ever did at the time. And I know even when I did mine, your garage had to be level with that road. So there's a lot of lots, when you look back on it, you looked at them, you say, geez, this is a nice flat lot. But by rights, you're gonna have to haul a lot of fill to meet that road, where the road comes. At least that's the way I was told when I built mine, and that's been over like 30-some years. So, but that's what the deal was. And then you couldn't get anything unless you had an access road coming into it. Otherwise, you couldn't have a building permit. But I was just telling you, basically, that's what I know. And then actually down where that corner is, where Antelope is, okay, Dick Sears, he had both of those lots. There's a garage on the corner, and then there's the house. Well, at the time, I think what he did is he just leveled that off. There was actually a ditch there, you know, and then he just filled it in. I don't think anybody ever said anything to him. And then he sold the one with the house on. He split it and sold the garage separately from the house. So by rights, they were supposed to have access coming out this way, but it never ended up that way because he split them up and sold them separately. So One comes out this way and the garage comes out this way. That's how that's how that became. And, like, I got approached down there and I got a certificate and a notarized and it come out of, I think it was Aberdeen. I think I had to apply for it at the State Department at the time. It was over here on the other side of 81, I remember. I don't know if it's still there or, but then they swapped that. They swapped that highway for something else. Maybe the bypassed at the time. So that's how the city ended up then with that road. If that helps you out any. I don't have anything else to say. I was just telling you that's what, that's how all this, come about.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Would anyone else like to come forward and on the record?
Hallie Bach. I didn't really want to say anything, but, excuse me. I guess in my opinion, and I don't know all the legalese of everything, but the standards that were put in place, or what we're reading from 1980, was set up when North Lake Drive was, like you said, a state road, I believe, and the development was planned as, I think, something that was actually going to happen, and now that's not the case. So I feel like we're going off of rules and regulations that were put into place when we're in a totally different situation right now, and we should take that into account. The other thing I'd like to point out is that there is a section of South Lake Drive where the bike trail does go across a lot of driveways. And like you said, Diana, the new section that they're putting in, it's great that they're able to remove that from the road. I think that's important, but I do think that that is a little bit different than this development. This would be more similar to the golf course area on South Lake Drive.
If there's no one else, we'll close the public hearing, and I would ask for, please come forward.
My name's Bruce Hested, and I concur with Mrs. Ford that safety is a primary issue here. Although on 4th of July, I couldn't quite follow her logic on that one. It's a mess out there, and it's a mess around the city on 4th of July. That's just the way it is. And I do see police cars come by there, so whether they enforce it or not, I have no idea. But my question is, why is this area so different from any place else in town? You've got blocks and blocks and blocks of houses on each side of the street, and they're backing in and they're driving in and they're backing out. What's different about this area? That's my question. Thank you.
If there's no one else, we'll close the public hearing, and I would ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I would still fall back on the opportunity to continue keeping things as safe as possible. Plus, I guess Rhonda's point of the buyer beware.
Well, to the gentleman's point, or both of them, or all of them, again, the lots were brought into the city as a development. I can't help, where the developer went broke or however, but it was planned to have a street to access those lots. It was never planned to access off of North Lake Drive. So I don't know, in my opinion, it needs to go back onto the landowners. Now, whether there's 20 landowners or 5 landowners, they have the obligation to put the street in. That's how it was brought in, that's how it was annexed, that's how it was zoned. We can't, change that. In my opinion, it should stay the way it was designed to come in, or maybe never would have been approved to come in as a development. Had all those lots been said, oh, we're just going to access North Lake Drive, this planning commission and the council may have said, no. We don't know that because none of us were on here in 1980 at this, at this level. So I think we have to go back to what was approved back then and assess it onto the owners to put the street in. And I don't know where else to go with that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just so that you guys have all the information, and I'm not sure, I'm actually asking an open-ended question because I can't remember. With this Pheasant Lane, is this going to be the same? So let's say the city did decide to actually grab the bull by the horns and actually build the whole thing and assess it back. Is there enough annexed into the city for us to build a full street? Or is this the same situation as we have on 16th Ave?
Yeah, because that north half is not annexed in.
Okay.
So we would have to, and typically our standard now, because we don't want to run into the half-street situation like 16th or 14th. And so we would want to build a full street section, but then we wouldn't be able to collect on the north half until that would be annexed, and there's no, time frame when that would happen.
But we would also have to ask the north property owner? Or is this all still in the same ownership? You know what I'm saying? Like, because we would have to ask them as well, just like we're doing with 16th, for the whole property owners to allow us to basically get a H lot, build the full road, or am I not thinking of that correctly?
So this entire right-of-way is annexed in.
Okay.
With it platted within city limits. 16th, though, it was just a statutory section line, so that's why then we had to get the H lot from the north property owner. However, the north property owner would be a part of the resolution for necessity and would get notice and whatnot on it. However, there would be no assessment that could be collected until it would be annexed.
So we don't need anything else from the north property owner with the exception of notice, necessity. You're going to get, if it ever gets annexed, you're going to get assessed.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
So with that, Lisa, could not an HOA be set up where that is a private street? Because you're not going to be on that street unless you live back there. That's not going to be it's going to be almost a private drive. So could that not be set up as an HOA where it would not have to be a full street, Brandy, where it can be a gravel street if they choose where Watertown, the city accesses, would be hard surfaced to the back of, to join Pheasant Lane?
So it wasn't platted as a private street, but that's not saying that the plat couldn't be amended to allow for that. And then a private street could be 28 foot wide rather than the standard 42.
And it could be gravel.
And there wouldn't have to be curb and gutter. And gravel,
I'm saying if it's a private street where we do not maintain it, the city doesn't maintain it, it's their own private drive.
but typically though, they still do have to, private streets still do have to be paved. Gravel sections are okay in a rural standard. Actually, no, they never are. They still have to be paved.
But it could be paved half-street. It wouldn't have to be full, because that HOA could decide for themselves how wide they want to make that street.
No, because if it's going to be providing sole access for a property, it has to be at least 28 foot wide and paved.
And Mr. Chair, sorry.
Go ahead.
And no, I understand that option of the HOA, absolutely. I just wanted the public to know, like, because then we get a reversion back of, well, why doesn't the city do it? So I wanted to make sure we had that discussion of what we would have to go through to do that process. So, sorry, thank you.
So Brandy, for my clarification, so these are R1 lots, there's a couple of residential garage. Again, current, if these properties are given access to North Lake Drive, currently, we don't allow a garage only to be built on a residential lot.
Correct.
And so I guess that's, you know, again, for maybe those landowners of do your homework of, even if you get access to North Lake Drive, you've got to build a residential structure, the garages won't be permitted.
And so, the term, you know, shouse, that actually works. I mean, somebody, all you need is a minimum of 160 square feet of living quarters for it to be considered a primary structure on the property. So you can do pretty minimal residential quarters to still have your garage for storage and whatnot, because we allow water and sewer in accessory structures as well. So with it being R1, it's just you would just need a minimum of 160 square feet.
Or it could be rezoned RG,
Yeah,
and then you can have a garage on a lot and only a garage, not a structure, not a living structure.
Yep.
Just a garage.
but there has to be 3 acres for it to be rezoned to RG, which is why then typically then you've seen that multiple or a handful of adjacent property owners will go in on a petition together.
All right, thank you.
We've had a motion and a second. I would like a roll call vote. And I'm sorry,
Just to approve.
just the motion was to approve the resolution.
Okay, we'll do.
This is Bonnie. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay, I agree with Rhonda that I think it should be a privately maintained road. I do a lot of work outside of Cottington County, and around most of these lakes, those are all privately maintained roads. And so what if they're narrow? Most of them are gravel, but I can see why the pavement would be nice, but I don't know. I'm agreeing with Rhonda on this. HOA.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Are you ready for a roll call?
Yes, please.
All right, Aletsky,
What are we voting on? I missed that. I'm sorry.
So the motion was,
To allow the driveways onto the road?
onto North Lake Drive, to lift that restriction and allow access onto North Lake Drive.
My answer is no.
Spire,
No.
Ford,
No.
Hanson,
no.
Dargis Johnson.
No.
With that, that resolution fails. Next item on the agenda is open public comment. I don't know if anyone came forward or had anything for open public comment. Brandy?
Nope.
Item number 8 is any new business.
None that I have.
Number 9 is old business.
Ford has a question. November is almost over, and do we have a meeting scheduled for the CL district?
We do not at this time, and thank you for bringing that up. I will check in with the mayor and see where they're at, where he's at with that, on doing the joint plan commission and city council meeting on making some of those adjustments to the CL district.
Okay,
But
thank you.
no date set at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 10 would be executive session.
Nope.
Then number 11 is an adjournment, and I would move to adjourn.
All right.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.